Hi. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight's going to be movie and TV show content. Before we proceed with the video, I just want to go off tangent for a second. My neighbors next door, like literally next door, are having a party. I can hear their music loud and clear. I don't know how it's transferring to the camera. So if you can hear any background noise, that's what it is, and I am sorry. But moving on to the topic at hand, tonight we are going to be talking about the movies I watched in what months? Oh god, in April and May, along with the TV shows I watched those past 2 months. I just never made an individual wrap-up video for April, so I am combining it with this. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm going to jump right in just a second. But I watched 3 movies in April, 3 in May, and then as for TV shows, I completed 2, other 2 are in the works right now. I also watched 1 musical. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first movie I decided to watch in April was Moulin Rouge. This takes place in the 1800s France. It's about a poor man who writes about love, and he falls in love with a woman who works at the Moulin Rouge, which is kind of essentially a burlesque show. That was the vibes I was getting. This stars Nicole Kidman as Celine. I forgot what her actual name was. And then Ewan McGregor as the main character, whose name I also forgot. You know what? Hold on. The playbill is right here. So Christian and Satine, so wow, I didn't even get her name correct at all. I think I ended up giving this movie 3 out of 5 stars. So I initially had no desire to watch this film. I only watched it because I got tickets to see Moulin Rouge the musical because the Broadway show was coming to Chicago. I don't have like a lot of harsh opinions about it, but I don't exactly have this great opinion either. So right off the bat, if I didn't already know this movie was by Baz Luhrmann, who I know is like a huge hit or miss for people, this would be one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. Weirdest is kind of exaggerating a little because like his movies aren't super weird. They're not super out there either, but they have a very distinct quality to it. Like if I watch any of Baz Luhrmann's movies, I know it is a Baz Luhrmann movie. Because like the editing to this movie was out there, it was big, it was grandiose. It was one big grandiose party, I guess is the best way I could describe it. Eccentric is maybe another word I'm looking for. The costuming to this, I actually really like the costumes in this musical. The costuming to this is very, very extreme, very grandiose. The set design was extremely grandiose, like especially her bedroom, because her bedroom's in that elephant thing. The music I don't have like a huge opinion on because this is a jukebox musical. If you don't know what a jukebox musical is, it's a musical that doesn't have original music. It takes songs already written and it's essentially covers of them. Like Mamma Mia is a perfect example of a jukebox musical because all of those songs were originally by ABBA and the cast is essentially covering the songs. Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor aren't great singers. I guess maybe for some people that's what makes the movie, that's what makes it its own thing. But for me, it took away from it because I'm seeing this beautiful set design with these beautiful costumes. When it comes to something that big and eccentric, I want the singers to be eccentric as well. But like Nicole Kidman, she did a lot of like talking singing because that's all she could really do otherwise. Ewan McGregor was better. Like he had certain moments where he could kind of like belt it out a little. I don't know if that's the correct term, but he still wasn't the best. And by the time I actually got to the end of the film, I knew where it was going, especially with like the twist with Satine was announced. Not really a twist because you find it out very early in the movie. Like I knew how the movie was gonna end. It's kind of just another tragic love story. Beautiful, sure, but nothing that like screamed at me to be like 10 out of 10, no, best movie of the year. To me it was just an okay movie. I really think, actually I know because I vastly enjoyed the musical and we'll get to that. I truly think if the people in this movie did actually know how to sing, I would have liked this movie a lot better. The singing, it really took away from the feeling of the movie for me, which may be controversial because I know this movie is well loved. However, I'm not sorry. And that's really all I have to say about Moulin Rouge because I did watch it in early April, so my memory is not as best as if I had freshly watched it. But yeah, 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5 at most, and we're gonna move on to the next movie. The next movie I watched in April, which is my one rewatch that I'm gonna talk about in this whole video, is The Prince of Egypt. This is a DreamWorks movie based on the story of Moses. I love this movie. I grew up with this movie. It was one of the movies I had to watch in my CCD classes growing up. Growing up Catholic, I had to watch a lot of religious themed movies, whether they were based on the Bible or allegedly based on a true story. Prince of Egypt is one of the only ones I liked, just because it is not even just because it's based on like on a biblical story, and you know, I grew up in the Christian religion. It's just like, as a story on its own, the way DreamWorks told it is so beautiful. It has amazing animation, especially when he parts the Red Sea. I read somewhere it took them 2 years to animate that. Moses is a very lovable guy. There's a lot of humor to this movie, so sometimes you forget it's based on a biblical story, which I do think is okay. I think it's okay to bring humor into these, especially if you want to grab an audience from children. Hans Zimmer worked on the soundtrack, so you know it's gonna be a banger, and it is. It's just all these songs in the movie, because it is a musical, it's just banger after banger, bop after bop. Every song is so good. Even the one I don't particularly like, Playing with the Big Boys Now, not my favorite, but it's not the worst song I ever heard. You know, I could still jam out to it when I'm watching the movie. I don't feel the need to skip the song. And despite some inconsistencies, because Moses is a lot older in the Bible than they portray him in this movie, I do think it's just a great story, and if you want to get your kids to learn about these biblical stories, this is the way to go. And I wish movies made more. If they were gonna make movies based on Bible stories, I wish they would do stuff like this. I don't know what was in the formula that DreamWorks came up with, but I just wish it was more like this. Even if you're not religious, I just think it's a great story. Like, I don't really consider myself religious anymore, but I really liked their portrayal of God. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or if I was like just like on my period watching this movie, but for some reason when God spoke, I actually like started tearing up a bit. Like, I'm not even religious and I'm tearing up. And I feel like that's the way to do it. Just capture your viewers with a great story. Even if you are an atheist, I firmly believe you will love this movie. If you don't like the plot of the movie, you will like the music, because every song, like I said, banger after banger, bop after bop, just fire song after fire song. I firmly believe Hans Zimmer invented fire with this music. And yes, I stole that from a meme. The last movie I watched in the month of April is Perfect Blue. This is a very famous anime movie. A lot of people recommend this whenever they talk about animation. It's about a young woman. I think she's only about 20, 21 years old. She was a part of a very popular pop group, and then she decides to become an actress. But as the movie goes on, something is not right. She is being stalked, and she is scared, and she can't really decipher fiction from reality. And people often describe this movie as extremely fucked up, and it will fuck you up, and boy were these people right, because this movie's fucked. One of the things that made this story such a gripping tale for me is just the narrative style. When I say this movie's fucked, I don't mean in like the gory sense, except for like arguably 2 scenes, which I will get to. This movie wasn't gory, it wasn't super violent, it's just the type of storytelling leaves you very unsettled. There's a very unsettling, uncomfortable, eerie ambiance to this movie as you're watching this young woman who's never really had to make these major decisions on her own before try to go through life, try to go through this new career path with people jabbering in her ear, and you're watching her lose her mind. Like I said earlier, she can't decipher fiction from reality. She doesn't know the difference, and because of the narrative style, you as the viewer don't either. You don't know if the guy she saw was really there. You don't know if the person she was talking to was really there. You don't know if this actually happened. You don't know what's a dream. You don't know who's talking to who. And it's all because of the narrative style. There's a very... I'm hesitant to use the word choppy just because I usually use that word as like an insult when I'm critiquing films. Jumpy, I guess. There's a very... The way these scenes are cut is very jumpy. Like, someone will be cut off in mid-sentence. Scenes will repeat themselves, but with like a slight difference, so that you as the viewer, although you don't know what's really going on, you know you are watching something different, but sometimes it's a big difference, sometimes the differences are very subtle, as in like a name change. The jumpy scenes was very minor in the beginning of the movie, but as the movie goes on, it happens more and more, to the point I could feel my heart racing. Who knew like such a simple plot, like, because it's a stalker story, and like when people say this movie's fucked, I'm expecting like violence, her head getting chopped off, just bodies contorting in ways they're not supposed to, just body horror, but none of that happens in this film. It is just a stalker story, but it's just the way it's told has me fucked up still. And I know I keep swearing, I know I keep using the word fucked, but like that's literally the best way to describe it. Deranged, crazy, insane. I mean, the main character feels like she's going insane, and like you as the viewer feel like you're going insane too. It leaves you unsettled and uncomfortable, and like you almost want to like skip scenes to find out what's gonna happen and just get to the end and make sure she's okay because of how unsettling it is. And I think another thing that makes this movie so uncomfortable to watch is just the realistic aspect to this film. This character is going through something a lot of women go through, and a lot of women celebrities go through, especially when they're famous from such a young age. Part of this film is that she was part of this innocent girl band, this girl group, where she's just cutesy little girl, but she reached a certain age where she's like, well, now I want to be an adult. So when she becomes an actress, she's starring in these films where she's clearly not a virgin. She has sex scenes. She models naked for a company. And there's certain people in the film, like her manager, for example, that don't like that. That's a problem her stalker had too. She wasn't this innocent girl in the pop group anymore. She was posing naked for everyone to see and not just him. And I feel like that's something a lot of celebrities go through, especially like young women. I mean, we saw this with Miley Cyrus. Her Hannah Montana days, her Disney days in general, just this innocent being. She finally reached adulthood and was doing whatever she wanted, and people critiqued that. I mean, she was in her 20s, and people wanted her to remain this virginal 15-year-old for her whole life. But that wasn't happening, so people got pissed off. And, like, some men act like that. Like, some men think it's hot when these young female celebrities are young and virgins, but at the same time they want to fuck them, but then get mad when that female celebrity gets older and is no longer this virginal sweet kid. She is now a grown woman doing what she wants, and they get mad and like call her a slut or whore or what have you. They I guess in conclusion what I'm trying to say, they want these female celebrities and just women in general, like women minding their own business who aren't famous, they want them to remain these virginal young girls forever, but then also want to fuck them at the same time. And it's like, you can't, what do you want? And why is that my problem that you want that? When all these women, we just want to do what we want, why do I have to abide by whatever thought process is going on in your head? And you see that mess with the main character too. There's like a lot of things you could tell she doesn't want to do, but she consents to do it anyway. Consents because she doesn't know how to say no. No one ever taught her that. And I was reading somewhere, and I'm obviously like American celebrityism, whatever that word is, we have those issues too, but from what I was reading, this is a huge issue with Japanese idols as well. Like, a lot of Japanese idols don't really have the free will, I guess is the term I'm looking for, to do what they want. Their lives are very managed. It was true for back then, and from what I was reading of reviews now, it is still true now. So in conclusion, I ended up giving this movie 5 out of 5 stars, and I really want to look into this guy's other work because I've heard they're just as good. And just some 2 final comments. One, it was nice finally seeing that famous still in action, because I know when people advertise this movie, they often use the one where she's smiling, has blood on her fingers, and is holding it to her face. My last comment is to give you guys a trigger warning for this movie, because no one ever talks about this when I see people talking about this movie. There's a very graphic rape scene in this movie. You could argue there's 2 rape scenes, but the first one is she as an actress filming something for a movie she's filming, and near the end there is an actual rape scene. It's not her as the actress performing something, it is her as a person being violated by someone. And no one ever mentions those. Like, usually when it comes to stuff like that in films and the way it's portrayed, I could just keep watching and be like, okay, whatever, this isn't triggering for me. But even like, I wanted to skip that scene because of how uncomfortable it was, and I could not wait for it to be over. So please keep that in the back of your minds if you decide to watch this film. So now we're going to get into the movies that I watched in the month of May. The first one is an anime movie called Bubble. This takes place in a kind of futuristic world where Tokyo is drowning due to a bubble explosion that came from a building. It's illegal to work there, but a lot of orphan boys live in Tokyo, and they perform hardcore parkour competitions. That was really hard to say. And while doing this, our main character meets a bubble girl named Uta. Uta started as a bubble and eventually became human. I didn't really like this film, if I have to be honest. Like, just to cut to the chase, I did give this film 1 out of 5 stars. The parkour was really cool to watch, and just how that was animated, that was kind of mesmerizing to see. And just watching the characters do their thing, but also like the camera angles and how the camera would follow the characters, I think is one of the reasons that made those scenes so exciting. But that's really it. That's really the only thing I liked about this film. I wasn't even like, I wasn't even blown away by the music like a lot of people were, because a lot of people were like, oh my god, Hiroyuki Sawano, he's like, you know, the John Williams of the anime world. So I went into this expecting like a punch to the gut with his music, and I got nothing. I didn't even like the music. This movie is literally just The Little Mermaid, but with a softer tone. And by Little Mermaid, I don't mean Disney's Little Mermaid, I mean Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid. I mean, there's one part of the movie, like when Uta first turns into a human. First of all, mermaid turning into a human, Bubble turning into a human. Uta turns into a human, and her and the one computer nerd chick, they read The Little Mermaid, and then Uta proceeds to think back on it and narrates the whole thing throughout the film. Which, like, is not uncommon for filmmakers or just book writers to do. Like, I've seen that trope before. It was never really my favorite unless there was, like, a twist to it, which this movie did not have. It was literally just The Little Mermaid, but Uta had a smile on her face and there was soft music in the background. It wasn't as depressing as Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid. So I felt like, I honestly felt like this movie was a waste of my time. And not only that, like the beginning was like kind of exciting, like watching the parkour right away. It dragged in the middle. I was falling asleep during the middle. Very slow pace, but then the ending is where things picked up and it made the pacing very jarring, so I wasn't really a fan of that. And I think one of the reasons this pacing's so awkward is because this hour and 45-minute movie would have fared a lot better if it was like a 12 episode long anime. There wasn't really enough development for these characters to get me to care for them. All of a sudden, it was like she was a romantic love interest, but I didn't really see it. I didn't see their connection at all. And I do think the runtime hurt that. Like, I truly think, and I'm not really alone in this, I saw other reviewers talking about it too, I truly think this could have been a 12 episode long anime. And then, therefore, they also would have had more time to develop the world. I feel like by the end of the film, I just had more questions about the world building than answers, which is never particularly a good thing. So maybe in the future, if they ever make this a 12 episode long anime, I'll watch it. But as of now, it's 1 out of 5 stars, one of the worst movies I watched this year. The next movie I watched is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. This movie is about a Chinese immigrant woman living in America, trying to pay her taxes, but while she's doing that, her husband from another universe comes in and is like, hey, you need to go on this adventure. And that's the best way I could describe this movie without spoiling anything else, because oh my god, this movie was an adventure to watch. It's my multiverse of madness. Not the Doctor Strange shit, but this one. This movie is really hard to talk about because the movie itself was just such a whirlwind to watch. Like, I cannot imagine being the actors in this and receiving the script. I really like seeing the different worlds coming together and seeing how they fit. Some of them were very similar to each other. Some of them were just vastly different. Like, in some of these universes, she wasn't even married to this guy. She didn't even have a kid. And yet they all still came together, so they were still woven together so nicely. I really like the use of language in this film because, so the mom and dad are Chinese immigrants. The daughter was born in America, so they speak a mixture of English and Chinese. The movie itself opens in Chinese. I'm not sure if they're speaking Mandarin or Cantonese. When the daughter gets introduced, that's when they start speaking English, and then they will switch off, which I think is what made the film more personal, because from my friends who have immigrant parents, that's how their households are. They speak a mixture of their home language and English. It's not just one language or the other. Chinese culture is huge for these characters, so, and I just feel like by bringing in that language, it made the story more personal, especially for these characters. The comedy of the film is what made this film also, like, it's very goofy sometimes, like the whole like donut thing. I'm not going to get into that because it's spoiler territory, but it's very goofy, but at the same time it is so heartwarming and so heart-wrenching too. Like the whole scene with the rocks, like it was kind of heart-wrenching to see that, seeing what the daughter had to say, but like also heartwarming for how that scene came together and how that scene came to a close. It's very typical of an A24 film when it comes to this comedy, because I've noticed some A24 movies will have these very serious plot lines and very serious atmospheres, but then will somehow slip in something super goofy. But it works. And this is one of those films, like, very serious atmosphere, but that one goofy thing, like with the fucking donut, works perfectly, and I love that. I adored the moral of this movie. I don't know how to talk about this without kind of spoiling it. The moral of the story is, no matter what path you're on, and no matter how you live your life, there's always going to be those certain people that are always going to be there for you and that are important for you to be able to live that happy life. And I think that's a good message to hear. So this is one of the best movies I saw this year. I gave it, I think, 4.5 out of 5 stars, just because in the beginning there was a little, when Jamie Lee Curtis comes in, that whole scene was a little slow. They were losing me. But otherwise, fantastic film. And then the final comment is this movie needs to win an Oscar for editing, because I cannot imagine being the editor for this film and getting all that footage and having to put it together, because it was insane. Then the last movie I watched in the past 2 months was 1968, I almost said 78, 1968's Romeo and Juliet. We all know the story of Romeo and Juliet, so I'm just going to skip past that part. But I've reacted to this movie, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. I'm going to link that up above where you can see like my full-fledged thoughts. But girl, out of all the Romeo and Juliet adaptations I've ever seen, this is the only version where I actually rooted for them. Usually I don't care because I'm like, girl, y'all just met 2 hours ago. It's not that serious. But these two had such great chemistry. They had me believing that love at first sight really does exist. And I wanted them to live. I went into this movie knowing the ending, obviously. Like, everyone knows the ending to Romeo and Juliet now. But I was upset when they died. Like, I wanted them to live. I wanted them to survive. And I wanted them to have their happily ever after. I think a big part of that was the ages of these actors. Because Romeo and Juliet, they're 17 and 14 respectively. And usually, like, movies and other things kind of age them up a bit. But in this version, the actress playing Juliet was 15 at the time. And I think Romeo was only 16, 17 filming this too. And it really honed in on how young these characters were. Especially for Juliet. Because, like, there were times where I actually felt sorry for her because I didn't see an adult crying. Like, I saw a child pleading for help. This movie had beautiful costumes, beautiful set designs, beautiful orchestra. Oh my god, that music was mesmerizing. And I thought the Shakespearean English rolled off their tongues really well, because I've noticed in other adaptations it kind of falls flat. Like in the 2010 version, it seemed very unnatural. You could tell they don't naturally talk like that. In the Baz Luhrmann version, it was extremely out of place because that movie takes place in the 90s. And even some play versions that I've seen, the audiobook that I've listened to, it just comes off as super unnatural. But there was something about these actors and actresses where it flowed off their tongues really well. And there was no overacting. Usually in Shakespearean adaptations, there's this overacting that I can't stand. And therefore, like, the words don't match the expressions, but that was not the case here. The words did match their expressions. And this is actually, I think, my favorite of the year, maybe. That might be pushing it, but it's definitely in one of my top 5 films of the year, which I never thought I'd say about Romeo and Juliet. And then my final comment is that Romeo looks like a High School Musical version of Zac Efron. I feel like my neighbor's music's getting increasingly louder. But on that note, we're gonna move on to the TV shows I watched. The first show I completed in April was Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 2. This is so hard to talk about because, oh my god, spoilers galore. But this ended on such an intense, perfect and intense note. There's a lot going on. This was just one hell of a season. Plot twist after plot twist. New things have arisen. All these characters and the way they're developing, how there's just no good or bad side. And you don't want, me personally, I don't want to root for anyone because it's just, it just sucks, man. Like, war fucking sucks, which is the point of this season, I think. The very last episode was finally back in Aaron's point of view. There's a string of episodes that was in everyone else's, kind of just to set the scene. But now that we're back in Aaron's, you know it's going to be intense and sad considering what's coming after this. I think season 4 really honed in on the atrocities of war and how bad it is. Like, I think when it comes to war and ideologies, we can all agree there is a good and bad side. But I think what Attack on Titan does, it really hones in on the fact that even the bad side does have good people. The good side has bad people. And that's one of the points of the stories. And you're really not supposed to pick a side. You're not even really supposed to root for Eren. So that's why I bring this up every time I talk about Attack on Titan. But it just angers me so much. I don't understand people who pick sides and then are surprised there's arguments. Like, no shit, there's arguments because you guys aren't doing what the author intended. The author wants you to just watch what's happening and not root for anyone. And yeah, there's gonna be a season 4 part 3, which I know seems a lot, but I guess this is what happens when studios take on things at such short notice, because I know the original studio Wit refused to do the final season because the distributors or something gave them just too short of a notice. It was too much to handle in such a short period of time. So MAPPA took over, but they weren't expecting the issues they would have. I've seen pictures of the director and has bags, black heavy bags under his eyes. I don't think these animators and directors and writers get any sleep. It's insane. Like, no wonder the final season is divided into 3 parts just to give them some breathing room. Like, that's insane to me. These poor people are overworked. But I think they're doing a hell of a job. They're putting on hell of a season. I'm kind of scared for how part 3 is going to go, just because how iffy that ending seems to be with manga readers. I'm very interested to see what anime onlys have to think. I'm interested to see my final opinion, because I've gotten a lot of spoilers, so I have a sense of what's to come. And quite frankly, I don't hate what I'm hearing. I don't mind it really, but I'm interested to see how I'm going to think of the show once I see all of that in action. I'm impatiently awaiting for January 2023. Next, I completed an anime called Parasite. This anime is only 24 episodes, and it's about our main character, Shinichi, who went to bed one night and suddenly something's crawling up his arm, and now his hand is an alien. Typically, these aliens take over the whole human body, so they're the host for the human. But since Shinichi blocked Migi as he was climbing up the arm, Migi is stuck in his hand. A lot of people on anime Twitter and anime YouTube kind of describe this anime as a masterpiece. I didn't really get masterpiece vibes, if I have to be honest. I thought this was okay. Like, I'd give it a solid, like, 3 out of 5 stars. There's kind of like a new arc, per se, every 3 episodes, and I wouldn't describe the pacing as rushed, but it also did feel very awkward to me. Like, I would watch 3 episodes and I felt like I watched 10. And it leads me to believe I feel like this anime could be a bit longer than 24 just to flesh out some things. I felt like this anime didn't explain a lot of things, which maybe that was the point. Like, maybe things weren't supposed to be explained to you. There was supposed to be like a mystery aspect. But I didn't really like it in this anime. Like, I was really confused on Kana. I was really confused on why she was able to send Shinichi and like the other people and like the other aliens of Migi's kind. My main thing with this series is that it was never explained where the parasites came from, which again maybe was the point of the series. Like, maybe there was supposed to be that mystery, because if there wasn't that mystery it would take away from something. But I was so curious on where they were from, why this was all starting. That never really got explained to us. Migi, the parasite, even said that she doesn't even know where they come from, or he, I don't remember what gender they were. And I just feel like the answer to that question would have made the story more complete. When it comes down to it and thinking back at it and all the other shows I've been watching, you know, like Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, I'm still in my Tokyo Ghoul phase. I think what it comes down to is that I think I'm just burned out from the whole, like, thing consumes human, but who are the real demons, who are the real monsters trope. And I think I'm just burned out from that topic. So what I probably should have done was watch something else in between all those shows and then this show, just so we had that gap in theme, and then maybe I would have liked the show more. But it's too late now. I've had my first viewing. Maybe I'll just rewatch it in the future. I don't know. But for now, the show is like a solid, like, 3 out of 5. Nice music though. I really do like that one song, Next to You. It plays throughout the anime, and every time I played it was always the most perfect moment. And my one fun fact for this is that Migi and Misa from Death Note have the same voice actress. So now we're just gonna move on to shows I've started but haven't finished. Due to the Stranger Things 4 hype, I decided to rewatch Stranger Things from the beginning because I just forgot about so much. So first off, I rewatched Stranger Things Season 1. My thing with Stranger Things 1 is that I remember adoring it when it first came out. It came out in, I think, 2016, so I was still a teenager. I was about 18, 19 around that time. Although rewatching it now, I did enjoy it better as a kid. I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it either. Like, I still liked the season. Just some things were a little bit slower than usual. There were a few scenes that were kind of losing me because of how boring they are. But I did still enjoy myself. It felt very nostalgic, and it's a good thing I'm rewatching this because there are some things I forgot all about. I completely forgot Hopper had a kid before the whole thing with Eleven. I forgot about Sarah. So like now, like, the rewatches and seeing all those scenes with him and Eleven just hit harder now that that is in the back of my mind. I miss Barb, but I forgot how little screen time she actually had because I think all like the fan craze around her like made me think she was in more scenes, but she was not. Winona Ryder was as great as always. I kind of missed the phase where everyone was obsessed with the whole like alphabet and Christmas lights thing. I just think that was a pure stage in our lives, and I wish we could go back to that. I will say I did cry. Like when they finally did say, well, shed a few tears. Next was Stranger Things Season 2. This was better than Stranger Things Season 1. So I think that the thing with this show is that it gets better as the seasons go on, which is not a bad thing. I actually like when shows do that because I feel like that's what you want for your show, because you want your viewers to stay put. Like if you're going stagnant or God forbid you're getting worse as time goes on, you're going to lose your viewers. But by making it better as you go on, you keep the viewers, and not only that, but you add more onto your audience. Season 2 is still... Actually, it's not my favorite, but but even when it first premiered, I liked it a lot better than Season 1. Will was my favorite character in Season 2. Will was my son. Season 2 is when I decided that he's my son, because he has been through nothing but hell in the first 2 seasons. I still remember those screams, and and his acting was phenomenal. Noah Schnapp had great acting. He carried Season 2. And it still kind of pisses me off that the writers kind of threw him aside for Seasons 3 and 4. Season 2 is when we find out about the Mind Flayer. He takes over Will and, you know, put my child through distress, and I'm mad at the Mind Flayer, and I think we need to kill it for Will's sake. I wish we got more explanation on 8 because her power was really cool, and I remember asking myself this season, how come we don't learn about the other kids? Like, what happened with 1 through 7, 9 and 10, and if there was anyone after 11, just for all of that to come up in Season 4. So I like to think that I'm a sidekick. I am the Alice Cullen of our universe, so thank you, you're welcome. I can see the future. I already know how Season 5 is gonna end. Oh, we also get introduced to Max and Billy in this season. I forgot how much of an asshole Billy was. This season also made me want to go to an arcade. I just found out the state I live in has the biggest arcade in the country, and I need to go visit it. It's only $20 at the door, and then you are free to play with over 550 games, and I need to go. Next, I watched Season 3 of Stranger Things. So this was the last season I watched in May. I didn't get to see Season 4 until June, but out of all 3 seasons I watched in May, this is by far the best one. Again, this show gets better as it goes. I really appreciate how this show is maturing with its viewers, so it's gonna have a different tone to it than it did in Season 1 now that our characters are older. I kind of like the relationship struggles kids were having, because when you're that age, they're inevitable. They're going to be over something petty. And I actually liked, because when Elle and Mike first got together, I was expecting them to have this perfect relationship. Nothing was ever going to go wrong. But I'm actually kind of glad they're struggling, especially as Elle lives with Hopper, learns more about this new world that she's a part of outside of the lab, and we watch her growing into herself, and that was really nice to see. This is just a really fun season, and the season I cried the most during, like that one scene where Will does confront Mike, and that whole thing made me cry because again my son was in distress. Hopper's letter, oh my god, kills me every time. It kills me when I just think about it. And Robin's coming out scene, like to this day, I feel like it's still iconic because I really liked how they handled that, just because I feel like Season 1 Steve would not have handled it the way Season 3 Steve did. We love character development, and also on that note, upon this rewatch, I remember Steve being a bigger asshole than he actually is. Like, I just kind of remember him being one of the villains, like obviously not the main villain, but being an antagonist, I guess I could say. But even then, I wouldn't describe him as an antagonist, because, like, honestly, the older I get, the more I'm like, yeah, Jonathan, that was creepy. I don't blame Steve for being mad. I mean, being an asshole and breaking the camera and then writing the whole slut thing on the movie theater thing, yeah, that's an asshole. That's an asshole move on Steve's part. And the whole thing he said to Jonathan about Will, he deserved to get his ass beat for that. But he's not the antagonist I remember him being. So, like, I don't even want to say he had this redemption arc, because he didn't really need to be redeemed from anything. Like, he just needed to grow up, which is what a lot of teenage boys need to do. That was my Stranger Things rewatch. I had a lot of fun with it. But again, I didn't start Season 4 until June, so I'm going to leave that for my June wrap-up. Then the last show that I started, I think it premiered in April, and it's still ongoing now as of June. That show is an anime called Spy Family. This show is about a man named Lloyd who is a spy, and for his next mission he needs to make this fake family, which he ends up doing. He meets Anya, who is his fake daughter, and then he meets Yor, who is his fake wife and also the fake mother of Anya. And they're all kind of sorta in on the secret. Anya knows Yor and Lloyd aren't her real parents, and Yor and Lloyd are not, like, romantically involved. However, Lloyd doesn't know that Yor's an assassin. Yor doesn't know that Lloyd is a spy. Neither of them know that Anya is a telepath. telepath. Anya, being a telepath, knows about each of them, but Anya's only 5 years old, so she doesn't actually understand what's going on and the gravity of all of it, so she keeps those secrets to herself because she doesn't want them to know she's a telepath, because if they find out, she's scared she's going to be sent away because that's what happened in the past. Girl, keep up. I know it's a lot. And y'all, you know what's funny? Manga YouTube was raving about this manga series before this anime was even announced. And I actually, granted I had no idea what it was about, I just thought it was another like rom-com. So I actually had no desire to read this manga, like, at all. And then the anime came out and I was pushing it aside, I was considering it, but then a friend texted me that she watched the first episode and was like already obsessed. So I was like, alright, let's go. I gave in, and y'all, these two bitches, Lloyd and Yor, have me fucking giggling and kicking my feet in the air. They're not even romantically involved with each other, but I am absolutely obsessed with them, and they are my new ship, my new comfort ship. And these bitches are so cute. Lloyd is so smart, and Yor has like no common sense, but she's fucking hilarious. I love them with all my heart. Like at the end of episode 2, when they were making their fake marriage real, he proposed with a grenade pin. What is stopping men from proposing with grenade pins? And it's so weird because this is a fake family. Like I said, Lloyd and Yor are not romantically involved, and yet they have some of the best chemistry I've ever seen when it comes to these couples, which I guess is the irony of it all. Like, they have better chemistry than real couples. And even bringing Anya into the circle here, like, as a family, they just work really well. Like, we're watching Lloyd become this really caring man. In the beginning, he didn't want to form relationships with these people, but like multiple times throughout what I've seen of the show already, there's multiple points where he's sticking up for both Anya and Yor. And then he has that like internal monologue, like, what are you doing? Keep your temper under control, but he reacts like a human being anyway. And it's nice to see him grow and be able to do that. Love a guy who shows his emotions. If Lloyd Forger was real and asked me to marry him, I would. As long as he proposed, of course, with a grenade pin. And you know what? Given like the other shows I've been watching lately, like Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer, all these really intense shows, Parasite, if we want to add that into it, this is just such a palate cleanser. It's such a wholesome show, and it is more so slice of life, I would describe it as. Some of these episodes just family doing family things. Other things have to do with the plot, and then like the slice of life episodes work more on character development and their relationship with each other. I'm obviously always up for a good intense show, but sometimes I just want to like sit back, relax, giggle, kick my feet into the air, smile, which is what I do with this show. I don't stop smiling when I watch this show. My face hurts by the end of the episodes because I'm smiling so much. And I'm well aware, I'm sure other people have this theory too. I do 100% think that this show's last arc is going to be Yor is assigned to kill Lloyd, which will absolutely destroy me. I'm just waiting for something sad to happen. But if these two don't end up together by the end of the series, I am unaliving. I could just walk into oncoming traffic because I love this. I love these characters so much. I will actually be upset if like the manga gets canceled or whatever and we don't ever find out if they end up together because they're so cute. I am rooting for them. Y'all have no idea how obsessed I am with this series. And part 1 of season 1 ends soon, and part 2 doesn't start until October. So I did start buying the manga so I can read more about it. I could say more about it. I could go on and on about Anya being the greatest daughter ever, and then her relationship with Yor growing, her relationship with Lloyd and how she loved him from the beginning growing. But I'm not. I feel like I went on and on about this show enough already. So let's move on to the one musical I saw. Alright, so the last thing we're going to talk about this video is the musical I saw in April. I did mention it earlier. That is Moulin Rouge the musical. This musical actually came out fairly recently, I want to say 2019, and it is based on Baz Luhrmann's movie. And I'm going to be completely honest, I think this musical is a lot better than the movie. I enjoyed myself a lot more watching this than I did the movie. The songs you hear in the movie do make it to this musical, but they also add more music. And some of these songs are bops. They use Chandelier by Sia, they use Toxic by Britney Spears, always a bop whenever that comes on. They added Single Ladies to the whole Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend thing, always a bop, love that song. They rickrolled us, so I was like, wow, I haven't heard that meme in a while. And it also helped that these people can actually sing, so the music was a lot better to listen to than when Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor were doing it. So that's a plus as well. This is honestly, I think, my favorite musical that I've seen, at least my favorite musical experience. Les Miserables is still like my favorite musical with its own original music, However, this has some of the best costumes I've ever seen. Out of all the musicals I've seen, and I've seen a lot, this had the best stage and set design that I've ever seen in all of those musicals. They use their space really well. In Moulin Rouge, it's like I said when talking about the movie, it's supposed to be big and eccentric and grandiose. It's for such a small stage, and you know, they're not going to have these big sets like the movies. They handled that space so well, and especially with the use of lighting. This musical had some of the best use of lighting I've ever seen in a musical, and I loved it. And I loved how much fun everyone in the audience was having. So this musical ends kind of on a different note than the movie. The movie ends on that very sad note. And like, I mean, this musical, that is how the musical itself literally ends. It does end the same way as the movie, but like the encore is very upbeat. The MC would ask us to sing along at some point, and the whole theater loved it. Everyone was participating, and it was just a really fun experience and a fun musical too, which reminds me, the beginning starts differently either, because I know in the movie there's that like eerie, depressing feeling. But in this musical, the beginning is like, alright y'all, let's go, we're gonna start dancing right away. And I love how they ended it on that happy note too, so we're not all like leaving crying, like, you know, like I did with like, when I saw Miss Saigon, I was really upset with that ending because of how sad it was. And it was just a really fun time. I guess the word I'm looking for is interactive. We were an interactive audience there in the encore. Also one of those musicals when we left, and like eavesdropping on conversations around us, no one had bad things to say. Everyone really enjoyed themselves, and that's how you know you put on a great show. Like everyone in the audience left loving it, and no one has any critiques. But if you ever have the chance to see this, highly recommend it. See the movie too if you really can, because I know movies are easier to see than musicals, but again, I like this better than the movie, so this is kind of the soundtrack that I go to whenever I'm in a Moulin Rouge mood. Alright, and that is finally it. The raw footage for these videos are always like an hour and a half or an hour and 45 minutes because I just have so much to say, and there was a lot going on these past 2 months. So let me know down below what TV shows and movies and any musicals you guys have been watching lately. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe, y'all know the drill, and without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao a tutti.